and thank you so much for joining me for some Saturday night crafting. My name is Sasha Reed, and tonight's video is actually compiled from 2 weeks worth of work. So I got so into this and had so much fun that it actually took me a really long time to kind of produce. So I'm hoping that this video will give you inspiration and allow you to make your cards a lot quicker and give you just a bunch of ideas of what you could do. So I ordered a few paper packs and I'm in love with Paper Rose paper packs. Their cardstock is like this shiny, silky, smooth. It's like butter, but in cardstock form, and I love it. And I thought, I want to use this up. I want to do as many cards as we can with paper pad and just give you a whole bunch of inspiration and ideas to work with. Now, if you're wanting more and more ideas of what you can do with a paper pad and how you can kind of maximize it, my friend Natasha Foote has also done a video using a paper pad up and making a ton of cards. I will link her video down below as well if you want more inspiration. So the first thing we're going to do tonight is we're going to kind of prep and get ready. So I am taking my bits that look like they should be cut up and I'm cutting those up. I don't really have any sentiments in this pack. You can see there's some sentiments here, but I found that they were just so difficult to work out how to cut those out. So I used stamps and dies instead. But I'm going to cut these little strips out. So I've got those ready to go. The next thing I did was I went for some matching colors. So I already knew there was lots of black. So I got black as my sort of matting layer. And then I went and found a paper pad that had a lot of similar colors to what I was using, and I love the Paper Boutique. They tend to do a lot of sets, so like coordinating papers and sentiments and things, but I tend to just go for the solid colored papers, and they work great in card making just for matting layers and backing things. So the first thing we're going to work on is ideas for large panels. So before we cut this down and have lots of strips, we're going to make some cards out of sort of a more bigger size panel, and you can work with whatever size cardstock you've got. So I'm trimming mine down so that they are 1/2 centimeter smaller than my card base so that I can mat it with a black layer behind it. And don't chuck any of your scraps, keep them all, because I've got a whole bunch of ideas for you towards the end of the video on what we can do to make even more cards out of those scraps. So I'm going to start by trimming down a bunch of my favorite panels, the ones that I really love the design and the print on, and I'm going to trim those all down, like I said, to be 1/2 centimeter smaller, and then I'm going to cut myself a nice colored matting layer out of one of the papers that I've got already there on my desk, and then I'm going to kind of do that with a few of the papers that I like, and then we're going to kind of decorate and embellish those panels, but to maximize the visual effect of that paper. So these are the ones that I want to have the most paper showing. I love the paper and I want it to be the focal point out of everything. So I've gone ahead and made my panels up, and then I'm going to glue them to my card base. So I'm using my stamp platform just because it's got that nice corner in it, because I've cut that backing panel to be the exact same size as my card base and I don't want to get it too wonky. So I'm going to use the corner of my stamp platform just to line it up, purely to line it up, and then I'm going to press it down, and that's how I'm going to do all my panels. So all my panels are the same size as my card base, and then that way I've just got that nice little pink edge to it, or blue edge, or whatever color I went with, and they're all stuck and mounted to the cards. So here are all the panels that I love the prints of and the designs of, and I want to keep those as kind of the main image. I want that to be really seen. First design we're going to do is kind of go big and bold. So we are going to take a sentiment die and just stick that on the front. This is the easiest way to work with a beautiful background paper, really maximize the look of it. So I've got this thank you die, which is from Fawn. I will do my best to link everything I've used today down in the description box for you if you want to find it. If it's not in stock, I can only apologize, but I will link everything I can. If I've forgotten anything, do pop me a little comment in the comment section and I will do my best to link it for you as well. So I'm just going ahead and taking some holographic cardstock. This is from Rainbow Card in the UK. They do ship worldwide, I believe. I'll link them down below. They have gorgeous holographic cards. I think this is the Cracked Ice holographic card, and I've just backed it with a layer of black, which makes it pop off that bold print a bit more. And then I'm going to go ahead and add on some glittery. These are like Nuvo drops, but they're the scrapbook.com version, the pops of color, and they're fantastic. They dry completely clear. You'll see photos in a minute, and they look fantastic. So that's the easiest way to kind of get that bold print to stand out. This is the panel that I created using those those little strips that I cut up at the beginning of the video. This is one that I didn't cut up, and it was so busy and crazy that I thought it just needed a little sentiment on the front of it, and then some of those drops, and it looks really beautiful. Now we're going to go on to sort of having our backgrounds be a nice bold sort of statement on our card, but we're going to draw your eye into sort of a focal point. So I'm going to share with you a couple different designs on how we can do that. So we still get that background looking beautiful, but we get that kind of eye drawn in, and it gives us a purpose to the card. So I'm using these infinity dies just to get a couple circles, nice layered circles. And then these nesting dies I love. They are not sort of outer layers, they are just borders. So they only die cut that shape that you see. So it cuts on both sides. You don't have the circle left in the middle. So I backed on some black card onto some double-sided sticky tape and then ran it through my die cut machine, pull off that release paper, and then I can stick it straight down on my card. Or you can just take some liquid glue, dab it on your finger, and kind of dab it on the back of that and then stick it onto your card. Whatever you like to do for intricate dies, but obviously it's a little bit more faffy to put the little intricate die on there. And then I'm just going to stamp a sentiment, stick that down in the middle on a layered black layer, and then added on some of these glitter drops again. These are the see-through clear ones. I use see-through clear and white in this video. And all I'm doing is filling in the centers of every flower that's on the outside of my circle. So it kind of makes your eye go in again because the inside has no glitter, just the outside flowers. And I love how this one looked. This was my favorite one. I did quite a few this version just because I love that we still got to see all that gorgeous pattern, but we still have our sentiment as well. And then that little bit of glitter kind of brings it together. Now this is another version of that same kind of theory, but we're going to use a flower instead of a sentiment as our kind of focal point. And I'm going to grab some of these dies. These are from Pink and Maine. They're just sentiment strip dies, and they go with a lot of my sentiment stamps. So I've got them in 3 different sizes, and they're fantastic to have. So I've just gone ahead and cut myself a little sentiment strip out, found the die that fits my sentiment, and then I'm going to cut myself a little background for my flower. So I'm going to do a little matting layer for that really cute fabric flower. I think I got them on AliExpress. I will do my best to find them, but I got about 3 or 4 different colors, and they're just kind of like a stitched flower. They're really quite cute. So to make this flower pop off a little bit more, I felt like I needed to add a bit of black because I didn't want to layer it with another flower as the layer was just too thick. So I thought in order to get that kind of black matting layer, I'm just going to add black to the edges of that flower. Now, if I'm going to stick down anything fabric, I will either use hot glue or I will use this glue, which is from Craftelier. It's an amazing glue that is super, super strong and works with all kinds of different textures. So it works with fabric, it works with leather, it works with cardstock and paper. It's just such a nice, strong glue. So I've used that to stick my flower down, pop my little sentiment on some foam, and then again, put glitter on all the flowers that are around that central point. And that's another way of having a nice sort of central focus point. If you've got, like, if you haven't got a nice big bold sentiment to go in the middle, you can use something else like a flower or another embellishment. So moving on, if you haven't got a nice die that can kind of draw your eye into a central focal point, you can also make some bunting and kind of get the same effect. So I've got this bunting punch, but by all means you don't need to have a punch. You can actually just cut that little bunting end yourself. So I'm cutting myself strips. I've got 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and 2.5 inches, which is what my punch takes. And I'm going to go ahead and slide them in just to get that little bunting bottom edge. But again, take a pair of scissors, cut through the middle, and then go from corner to that central point, and you'll have yourself a nice bit of bunting as well. So I want my focal bunting to kind of stand out a bit more, so I'm going to put some white on it so that I can stamp on that bit. And I would suggest stamping on there before you go ahead and mount it onto your card, but I got a little too into it and stuck it down on my card before I stamped it. But it is a good idea to stamp before you stick it down, just so you have a nice level flat area. I felt like when I put these bunting pieces down that they kind of all merged into one big black blob. So I took a white gel pen and went around the edges and added a bit of fake stitching, and that really helped to pop it off of the card and give you the idea and the impression that there are 3 pieces there. Now I found another nice big sentiment, and I know this one is not in stock anymore. This is a few years old, so I apologize, but this is a nice one that's got happy, and then you can stamp birthday on a smaller bit. And again, I went with those same little sentiment strips and a stamp set from Trinity Stamps and added that onto the front. And then I think I have added some glitter or some white onto every single card I worked with today because I really love that extra little pop of something. It gave it a little bit more character and dimension and a little bit of shine and sparkle. So they look white here, but they do dry completely clear. As you can see here in the photos here, they're nice and clear. They just add that little bit of shine to it. So if you don't have any big die sets, you don't have to worry. You can still make it work. You can add on something like a bit of bunting, or you could even layer some squares and put that on the front and just get the same kind of effect. For this one, we're going to work with some dies, and we are going to do sort of the triple layered die cut effect, I think. So we're going to take some layering dies. The nested dies are the best kind, so they're nice and tight and close together. I've got these scrapbook.com ones. A simple shape is best for this technique. And I'm going to take sort of one layer, and then the next layer I'm going to put with the black, and then the next layer goes on the colored, and the next layer goes on the black. So you can see when I stack them up, I've got a gap between each layer because the opposite layer is in the black cardstock, if that makes sense. I'm going to tape my dies together, and then that way they all die cut as one, which is what we want. This again allows us to have that big, beautiful, bold background paper, but we are twisting it in a slight way to give it a bit more dimension and character. But again, you get to see a lot of that gorgeous, bold pattern. So I've cut them all out. I've got my pattern paper on the right, and then I've got my background paper on the left, my black cardstock. So I've stuck them all together for the pattern paper, but for the black cardstock, I cut them individually so I could use them as a matting layer behind it. You could die cut the black as well and have those layers be just like the pattern paper, but I found it a bit easier to work with when I had it as a nice big sheet. So that's what I chose to do this time, but you can by all means save cardstock and you can die cut it all out of one piece of black as well. Now make sure that you've got your patterns all going the right way, so your flowers all line up or whatever you're working with. I decided at this point that I had this little bit of scrap, and actually that slightly larger die would fit on there, and then I could put it onto a black card base and get a 4-layer card or quadruple layered card. My other one that I'm going to share with you in a second is a triple layer, but this, I just felt like this last bit of scrap, I just wanted to stretch it a little bit more and get that extra layer on there. So once I cut that out, I just measured it to make sure that I would cut my card base to that size. And then this is kind of my little proud moment. I wanted to share with you, look how good I did, how little wastage I had. And actually I didn't even waste it. I used some of those scrap bits as well on some extra cards. So I'm going to go ahead and layer that first one down onto my card base, and then I'm just going to simply glue them all into place. So I've done that off screen so you didn't get too bored watching me glue. I just used liquid glue. If you do use foam, it does make it quite tall and quite dimensional, so just be aware if you want to use foam tape, it will make it very dimensional. It's already dimensional enough. But how gorgeous is that? You see the whole pattern under there. You've got that beautiful pattern paper with a bit of extra character. And then again, to keep it simple, I just grabbed those dies, did the same thing. I backed it onto black. I had a nice big pile of them. Backed that onto black cardstock and use that as a focal point. Now another way to die cut is to use the Eclipse technique, where you die cut into your paper, pop up that whatever die cut you have, which mine is thank you, and I popped that up with some foam tape. So here you can see it, you can see that thank you, and then I put a little sentiment across the front to say from the bottom of my heart, and again I only used the glitter drops along that outside edge where all the flowers were outside of the thank you. And I love how this turned out. So you can see that thank you when you're holding it in your hands, but it's another way to add a bit more dimension and character without having to compromise your beautiful background. Now I did this one with the flowers. What should I do with it? I couldn't work out how on earth to finish this card off. I embossed that outer layer. I did the Eclipse technique where I popped up those inner flowers, the layered flowers, but what do you think I should do? If you've got ideas, shove them in the comments because I just got stuck. So I gave up and I thought I'll ask you guys. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the scraps and the smaller panel pieces, and we are going to work with those. And I did 20 cards with this next design. So this is a great way to use up those scraps. So I found a die set that I really liked the look of. So if you have only got punches, use that, or cut yourself some squares. Then I went through and grabbed all the sort of chunky ones that I knew were 6 inches long, because my cardstock or my paper started out as 6 inches long. So I'm going to cut them exactly in half, and I'm getting 2 cards for each one of these strips. So I've gone ahead and cut them all down. I've got loads of them. As I said, I did 20 cards with this. They are all different heights, but they are all the same width. And then I'm going ahead and taking some of these smaller scraps and cutting them in half. So they are going to kind of add to our card and make the design pop a bit more and show off some more of those papers. So just like before, we are going to go for a matting layer, and I'm going to use my colored cardstock for this, or my colored paper, and I'm cutting it to be the exact same width as my paper. So it is 3 inches wide, and then I think I went with 4.5 inches tall. So it'll be a nice focal point on my card. And then I've gone for 1/8 of an inch wider on all the sides so that I've got a nice little tiny snug border in black. So I take my scraps and I go through all my papers and I line up the scrap that looks nicest with that background paper, and then I go ahead and I stick them all on. So here they all are, done and dusted. Didn't want to bore you. I did 20 of them, as I said. Then I thought I really wanted some of that holographic kind of cardstock to go in the middle, but the cardstock was a bit thicker than the paper that I'm using, and I just felt a bit lazy. So I remembered I have this pack of vinyl, sticky back vinyl that I found on Amazon. And I had this down under my desk. So I grabbed a piece of the holographic and I cut that up. So I cut a nice little strip of 3 inches. And then I went and took my little chopper and I just sliced up the tiniest slivers. So I just did little slivers, peeled off the back of that and stuck it down. So super simple and easy. I did have a lot of scraps on my desk and I could have used up those, but I just wanted, for simplicity's sake, because I did 20 of them, I just went ahead and used this sticky back vinyl and stuck that onto my cards. So I'm doing that on every single background panel. I've got my nice little decorative paper at the bottom, and then I'm adding on that layer of holographic right in the middle. Now you can see there's quite a significant difference in size. So this is where I'm going to take my scraps, and I'm going to take my scrap that is slightly fatter and chunkier, and I'm going to put it on the skinnier one, and then vice versa on the other one. I'm going to take the skinny one and put it on the fat one. And then that way it kind of levels out to be almost half the size of the panel. So I'm kind of decorating the bottom half of the panel, leaving the top half empty. When I've done that, I can then go ahead and stick it onto my black matte layer and have that ready to go. So it was really simple, easy design, uses up all those scraps of different sizes and gets 2 for 1 out of each piece of that scrap. So I've got my 20 panels ready to go, and then I went ahead and die cut out a whole bunch of these white ones out of my white cardstock, and I will use those for my sentiments. So this is a really ancient stamp set that I've had for years and years and years, so I know it's not available, but I thought just for you was the perfect sentiment, because I can give these away as a gift. I can bundle them up in a nice little packet, you know, maybe 3 or 4 cards, and then they're for any occasion. You can give them away for birthdays or anniversaries or thank yous. There's just so many options with it. To finish it off, again, I went in with some drops. I went in with the white ones, and I've got my 20 cards ready to go. And I'm so pleased with this design. It worked out so well, and it got so many cards out of those scraps. Now, if you've got those teeny tiny scraps, this is a great way to use them as well. I just took them all, cut them to random sizes, took some foam tape. This stuff is from scrapbook.com. And I used either 1 or 2 or 3 of them all together to kind of get the right width for each of my scraps. But this is where I used up some of that excess stuff that I shared with you that I had left over from that one card panel where I had that little bit of skinny stuff. This is a great way to use it. I just randomly cut them, randomly up and down them across the card. Got this gorgeous background. Stamped myself a sentiment with my Trinity sentiment stamps onto one of those strips again, and stuck that across the top with a little cute bow at the bottom. And of course I came in with my glittery drops again and added some of those, and that finished off the card. And I love how this one turned out, and this one was literally the scraps that you would chuck in the bin, and it is such a cute card. And those papers all go together because they all came with the same paper pad, and they look stunning. This is probably one of my favorite ones out of all of them. So I had some scraps left over that were vertical scraps, so they had to go out vertical on the card or they would look funny. They couldn't go horizontal. And I thought, well, we could just run those down the middle of the card and make that the sort of focal point. So I cut my strips to be exactly my card base, and then I cut a nice little black panel that was a 1/8 of an inch, I think, on each side. And then I had a whole bunch of these just for yous left over because I went a little crazy with them for the last set of cards. So I popped one of those on there, and then again added some of my glittery drops around, and that finished off those cards. So I did 3 of those, and I was really pleased with how they turned out. These ones were probably my quickest version of my cards that I made today. They were so easy to put together, and I love how they turned out. Now we've got envelopes, and I've still got some of my scraps left over. I've still got some of those strips. There's my pile. That's all I've got left. And I'm just going to slap them onto some envelopes. So these are my envelopes. I am just taking some of the strips, gluing them to the bottom corner, gluing them down the side of it. But I found that my most effective and most easiest way of adding some color to that front of that envelope was to simply layer the bottom right hand corner on an angle. So you can either put the glue along the corner of your envelope, or you can put the glue on the back of your strips. I found easier, so I started off with glue on the strips, but I found it easier when I went and put glue on the envelope, and then just lay those strips down on top of it and trim off the excess, and then you've got this gorgeous edge to your envelope. Really simple, quick and easy. So here are the ones I've done so far. It's just a cute way to add a little bit extra to your envelope. And these are my scraps. that is it. From the whole entire paper pad, this is all I've got left. I can still make several more cards out. I've got these squares here, these leftover bits, plus that little panel of the hearts that I still have to use up, and then those little scraps. And I'm just going to call it a day with those scraps and put them in the bin. So I've still got a bit left, and I can still create a few more. I managed to make a total of 35 cards in my creative session, and I still have those little bits of scrap left over if I want to make some more. But I hope you have a go. You take one of your favorite paper pads and you just cut into it and start creating. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. If you enjoyed it tonight, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. My social media links are down in the description box below for you, as well as all the links to everything that I used will hopefully be in there. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a fantastic weekend. Take care. Bye.